Hello. This is just another one of my episodes where I'm just going to talk to you. And it's so funny because if you're listening to the audio, I am now doing this on video and putting it on YouTube. And the challenge I didn't realize with putting it on YouTube on video is that sometimes you just don't want to have to like take a shower or put makeup on. And you just want to just get on and record a podcast. And so today I'm like, I just want to talk. I don't want to take a shower. I don't want to put my makeup on. I don't want to put my contacts on. I don't want to put a nice shirt on. I just want to wear my t-shirt, my sweatshirt, my glasses, and just talk. And so that's what I'm doing. So, and that's one thing I kind of just have accepted about myself, and maybe it's age, is that what you see is what you get. And it's more about what's on the inside than I used to be so worried about the exterior, and the vanity thing is such a big thing in our society. And I don't know. It's not that I don't like, I still want to wear makeup when I go out and see other people. So I still have a little vanity, but so if you're watching me, and I also have this lighting in my home studio, and so there's this glare when I wear my glasses, but I can't see a friggin' thing. So I can probably take my glasses off for a bit. Yes, that's what I'll do. I just took them off. But like if I have notes, forget it. So I just have to have everything in memory, or I have to put my glasses back on. So anyways, so that's what I'm dealing with this morning. So I guess I'm a little lucky that I'm not dealing with anything a little more worse. So what do they say? First world problems. Um, all right. So today I want to talk about, and it's funny because I had a completely different thing that I was going to talk about, but I had a download from the universe, and I used to never like pay attention to these things, but I was laying in bed this morning before I got up, and I was thinking about doing this podcast, and I was like, I want to talk about this. And then I came up with these these acronyms, like the 4 A's. And I don't know, maybe that's just the teacher in me. It just came to my head, and I was like, yes, that's really what I want to talk about. So today I want to talk about, because I've talked about it in a couple of episodes, about my trigger. I had the one episode about what triggered me during this whole racial tension crisis that's going on in our country. And then I did just record an episode. It hasn't aired yet, with Makosi Candace, and she is a shaman, an African shaman, and we talked about triggers there. And so I am excited to have that podcast air, and it'll probably be a couple of weeks. So, but the thing about triggers that I loved that she said is, to give you a little advance highlight, is that you should be excited about triggers, that triggers are a good thing. And we always think, oh, I got triggered, I got angry, I got pissed. But it can be a good thing if we are conscious enough to uh, really look at that trigger and learn from it. So there are 4 stages, I say, in trigger, in conscious triggering. So in other words, knowing how to take a trigger and learn from it. So there's 4 stages. And this is what happened to me. And I swear that the mindset work, I've been trained in the past year as a neuro coach. So in fact, I'm graduating next week as a master neuro coach. And a lot of brain science and experiential learning of coaching people through really understanding what's holding them back, and understanding about how thoughts are in our they're just thought. And I'll do another episode about this. The thoughts that we think are our ego. We have an ego, and our ego, I actually did learn about this when Oprah did a webinar with Eckhart Tolle, years ago. It was like 2007. It's when she still had her show on, and I loved her show, and she did this webinar, and that's in the day before webinars were a big thing like they are now. And I remember it was Monday nights, and you tuned in, and it was like an hour and a half, and it went through a chapter. There's 10 chapters, so it was 10 weeks of this kind of this online book club with Oprah and Eckhart. And if you've ever read an Eckhart Tolle book, I've tried. They are kind of really kind of philosophical, and just kind of, it's hard to. I had a hard time with his books. I got kind of bored. It's kind of the kind of books that sometimes you might fall asleep during. I guess you had to be in an advanced state in your consciousness, and I wasn't there yet. So her book club was really helpful because she dumbed it down for the non-philosophical, and she even had people calling in from all over the world and getting their thoughts and takes from what they read. So anyways, it was based, by the way, on his book called A New Earth. And so I learned a lot about ego from that uh 10 series webinar, and you can Google it, or search on it on YouTube, and all of the episodes are on YouTube. So I would highly recommend it if you are looking for something to do. It's kind of like binging on a Netflix series, and this is really valuable stuff. But anyways, the ego is, kind of keeps us, our ego is our human thoughts, so like our human being thoughts. And underneath or behind our ego, ego, people think ego. When I think of ego, or I used to think of ego, I used to think of the huffy puffy football player. Oh, I am, the ego is big and brilliant, and I think he's better than anybody, ego. But ego is also where your fear comes from. Your ego is what really holds you back, because your ego wants to keep you safe. That's kind of the nature of the ego. And the ego really doesn't want you to go outside your box, go outside your comfort zone. But then there's your soul, which is your inner voice. So think of your soul as the consciousness, and your ego is kind of unconscious, because your ego just operates automatically. Your ego is based on years and years and years of the thoughts that keep repeating themselves, and they're on autopilot. And a lot of what we do, 90% of, and this is brain science, a lot of what we do is automatic. We don't even think about it. We react a certain way. We stay stuck. We don't venture out. That's just like, that's our ego is just kind of controlling everything unconsciously. And we think we're conscious because it's funny. We're awake, right? We're awake. People think, "Oh, that's conscious." Well, it's kind of not. You're kind of unconscious when you're being driven by your ego. And so then there's your soul, and your soul is and there's a really good book, and I'm going to have a guest we're going to do like kind of a book club thing called The Untethered Soul, and it talks a lot about the kind of the differences, and it's very abstract, but it's fascinating if you can go there. And but it talks, your soul is kind of the watcher, is underneath. But a lot of us are, like me, most of my life was like blocked off to that part of me. So my soul would try to speak, and I'd be like shutting it down. My ego would just like, be quiet, be quiet, be quiet. Because the ego is very good about, taking over the room. So, and why I'm giving you a little bit of this background is because the 4 A's are kind of the stages you have to go through, but they have to come from your soul. They have to come from your consciousness. They have to come from a place where you're kind of getting past the ego. And so the first A is awareness. And awareness just means that you're paying attention to your thoughts, that your soul, is watching and listening to what is going on inside your head. So in other words, when you have a thought, like I had a thought that I was really angry about that situation with the police officer being killed, and that it wasn't being talked about, and I thought I could have been there. I could have been there. And so our ego would just keep us there and keep us mad and keep us like, so like, this is ridiculous. Why is not the news saying this? And these poor police officers, um, and not saying that it wasn't wrong what's happened to what the bad cops do. That's horrible. There are bad cops, but there are more good cops. And I just felt like the stories of the good cops and what was happening to them were not being shared. And so, but because I'm a student, and now a certified master neurocoach, I know that it doesn't mean I don't get triggered, right? It just means that now I'm listening, I'm watching, I'm paying attention, and I'm like, okay, that was a thought that is keeping me stuck in this mindset. And so this first step, the first A, is awareness. You have to start to be aware of what you're thinking, and the next A, which is the next level, is analyze. So awareness is catching the thought and knowing that that is a thought that is happening, and that thought is not serving you. It's not really helping, just helping you be in a bad place, in a low vibe state. And we don't want to we don't want to live in a low vibe state, and it will suck us in. So we need to be aware. Then we need to analyze. So we need to like be a little bit of a scientist or a Sherlock Holmes. And we need to say, okay, so I'm aware I had that thought. Why did I have that thought? Where is that coming from? Why do I think that? Why just is it happening? Where did it come from? And of course, I quickly realized where it came from. It came from years of being a police officer's wife, years of being scared when he'd go off to work, and when he was late and not hearing from him, not knowing where he was and what might have happened. I remember one morning he didn't come home, and being a police officer, he didn't make a lot of money. They do what they do without getting paid a lot of money. And I had to work always. But when we were very, very early on in our marriage, before I really had a good job, uh, he had a car accident on the way home. He felt he had two jobs. He always had two jobs early on in our marriage. So he worked security. So he would work, I think, and then he was working like a 3 to midnight shift. And then he would go and work all night as security at a grocery store. And then he'd drive home in the morning. And he was driving home in broad daylight, and he was going around a turn, and he fell asleep while he's driving. And fortunately, instead of going into oncoming traffic, he was, he's going down around a right-hand bend. And so the steering wheel was turning right. And so he just went into the ditch. And of course, we didn't have cell phones back then. This was like in the late 80s. But the car was wrecked, and he didn't, I mean, I guess he had a radio because he was a police officer. I can't remember, but he was in plain clothes because he had been security. But anyways, so I didn't hear from him. He was like an hour past the time he was supposed to get home. And I just remember just being super worried. So I knew when I got that trigger that when I analyzed it, where it was coming from. So instead of staying in this kind of unconscious state with the ego driving, I became aware and I started to analyze. And when you start to like be the Sherlock Holmes of your thoughts, it's kind of like you're stepping away from the fight. You're becoming an observer of the fight. It just came to mind is like a bar fight, you know? You're like, you're before you could become aware, you're kind of in the midst of the bar fight. You're swinging with your fists, you're throwing the bottles, but then you like kind of back up. You're like, wait a minute, what's going on? Why are these people, why are they crazy? Why are those thoughts in my mind so crazy? So, and then the next step of the four, the third step is accept. And you have to have grace for yourself. You have to uh, understand that we're all human and the thoughts we have are based on years and years and years of our own personal experiences, people we've met, the parents we had, the comments that were made, all, everything from friends we had, boyfriends we had, girlfriends, if you're a guy, or if you like girls, um, everybody that was around, teachers, coaches. I mean, coaches can be a big part of our life because, they are very demanding. So we carry with us uh, these experiences, and these experiences have caused us to believe things in a certain way. And so we have to accept who we are, and we have to accept if you've gotten to the third step, heck, you're a human being who has progressed past the stage of uh, just kind of an unconscious, person walking around not trying to make themselves better. So that this you just need to accept that and be gracious that you have this ability that a lot of people don't. So the acceptance piece is just kind of just being grateful. And as my friend and future guest on the podcast said, be excited about the fact that you had that kind of experience that triggered you, because it's going to take you one step further into what the next level is advancement or advancement. So you basically are learning, what are you going to do now? You had the awareness, you analyzed it, you've accepted it. Now, what's your next action? If you hadn't gone through these, you wouldn't advance. If you weren't even aware of those thoughts, and you just stayed mad and stuck and angry and lashed out at people, you're never going to advance. You're never going to advance. You have to get, and the reason why accept is so important also is because you can get if you don't accept, like, you're a human and you're gonna have these triggers, you might not take the next step. You might just stay in this like guilt and beating yourself up, and uh, that's not going to help. So you have to get to the advancement stage, and you have to do something that takes you to a I mean, I can't think of a better word than advanced, an advanced state, an advanced stage. So, like, using my example, because I think examples help, is the way I advanced is I went and read the book White Fragility, and it was so helpful. It was so helpful, and I learned things that I never would have learned if I hadn't been triggered. Well, I had bought the book and I said I was going to read it, but I hadn't opened it yet. So the trigger, I think, pushed me into reading it more quickly than I would have. But I already knew I wanted to read it and needed to read it. But and I read it. I committed to reading it 2 chapters a day, and I finished it in less than a week. And I am a slow reader. I am not a good reader of books. I mean, I like to read books, but it's just like I need to take a speed reading course. I don't know. Sometimes I think, oh, am I too too old for that. And then I think that is a limiting belief. So that's my ego holding me back. So that was my download today, and those were my thoughts. And I just thought it was important because I'm so fascinated with this whole mindset stuff and the neurocoaching work that I've done. And it's just been really life changing. And now it's made me a better coach. So I can really understand people and help guide them through when if they have a trigger or recognize a trigger. It helps me understand like my family, and if my husband has a problem and he's getting triggered, he's not aware of his thoughts, he's in his ego. But it really does, when you have the awareness of your thoughts, you're also having awareness of other people's thoughts. And it helps you accept them, just helps them. Like, of course, my husband doesn't want to hear any of my coaching, but it just helps me understand. It helps me understand where he is and where he's coming from. And instead of just, thinking, oh, he's just being angry. And, it's like, oh, I know his ego's trying to protect him, is keeping him safe. He's staying stuck, and he's just not aware. He's not analyzing and figuring out why and where it's coming from. So I think it has allowed me to have grace for other people, and to know that, you know, it's not the soul it's not the inner voice. They're just shutting that out. And once you get into the soul, because the soul is just the loveliest place. It's the most contented, peaceful, and um, harmonious. So, so I love what I've learned through this process, through my triggering, and through the process of the neuro coaching, and then relating the two and understanding. And then, of course, coming up with the 4 A's, I thought that was great because it's awareness, it is analyze, it is accept, and it is advance, right? So those are the 4 A's. So I hope this has helped. I hope my download from the universe was helpful to you, and it was sent to me for a reason, and it's now out there. So, and then next week, I'll talk about what I was really going to talk about today before I had the download. So thanks for listening. And thanks, if you're watching me on video, for bearing with me through my casual look, through my, like, this is me though, I got leggings on, I got my sweatshirt on, I got my Redskins blanket on under me, on me under my, you can't see it on the video, I'm raising it now, because I am a Redskins fan. If you didn't know that about me, I know you feel sorry for me now, but one day in the 80s, they were good. They won a Super Bowl or two. So, but that was a long time ago. They'll come back someday. They always, teams, they have good years and bad years. We just had a lot of bad years. All right. So enough about that. All right. Thanks so much, and have a great rest of your day or evening. All right. Bye. Thank you so much for tuning into the Not Your Average Lives podcast. If you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe on iTunes if you have an Apple device. You can find free resources and learn what else I have going on at the moment that might interest you on my website at notyouraverage.grandma.com. You can also find me on Instagram or Facebook at Not Your Average Grandma. If you liked this episode, it would make my heart so happy if you could leave me a 5-star rating. You can also add a review to let me know what you like about this podcast, which will help spread the word about it to others who need a little midlife inspiration. As always, be you, listen to your inner voice, and focus on reigniting that lost spark so you can start living your own Not Your Average life.